Now we will move on to our next session. Next session will be conducted by Dr. Jyoti Pavne ma'am. She has just joined the meeting. Welcome ma'am. Dr. Jyoti Pavne, Associate Professor, Indian Institute of Education, Kothurur, Pune, and the topic is Authenticity in Teaching. Before we start, I would like to give her a brief introduction. Dr. Jyoti Bhavne, currently as Associate Professor at Center for Educational Studies, Indian Institute of Education, Pune, has a doctorate in education and specializes in the area of teachers and teacher education, educational policy and practice, online teaching learning. She has 20 years of teaching and research experience. 12 MPhil students and 9 PhD students were awarded their degree under her guidance. She has conducted several research studies, and recent ones were funded by UNESCO studying impact of COVID-19 on educational system. She has also published papers and contributed chapters relating to her specialization at national and international levels. She is currently co-editing book to be published by Routledge London. She is a proud author of various books and contributed various chapters in national and international books. She was a Fulbright Scholar at the Learning System Institute, Florida State University, and Erasmus Scholar at KU Leuven, Belgium. Thank you, ma'am, for your valuable time. Before we start, I would like to inform all that this session will be for 50 minutes, and after it, 5 minutes will be given for question and answer session. Now I request you, ma'am, to please proceed with your technical session.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, can I just share my screen because it's been disabled?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay, no, it's still disabled. In the meantime, let me just introduce myself. As you know, I am a faculty at the Center for Educational Studies, Indian Institute of Education. II actually is an institute which has been started by Dr. J.P. Nayak, who actually is a founder of, just a minute, I am just trying to.
You are host now.
Now you are host.
Now you are host.
Yeah. J.P. Nayak, who actually has started this institute, and the institute basically started with the intention that education cannot be taught independently, but it has to be integrated with the other disciplines. Can you see my screen now? Is my screen visible? Yeah. Is my screen visible now?
Not yet, madam. Not yet.
Not yet, ma'am.
Okay, continue. Desktop. I have used, so it looks like.
Screen sharing is not started yet.
Yeah, but okay, it is not sharing the screen once.
Not sharing.
Madam, you please first open your presentation and then start sharing.
Okay. Yeah, my presentation is open. Yeah, it is. Can you see the screen now?
No, ma'am.
Not yet?
Not yet.
Okay, let me.
What's happening, ma'am?
I don't know. It says this will stop other screen sharing. Do you want to continue? I put yes.
Yes.
Continue.
Yes. Continue.
Yes.
And it says desktop. I have chosen the desktop for Microsoft. Oh, it looks like it is still not sharing. There is some issue with this thing. Can you see now?
No, madam. No.
Because I can see
not
the screen.
Yet, ma'am.
Okay. Sorry for this. Okay, let me just say, okay, with this institute, we have a MPhil and a PhD program, which is actually interdisciplinary, wherein we entertain students even apart from education to join this one participant share at a time. Why does it say that? Only host. You can start. It says one participant can share at a time. Then,
Just click OK and continue.
no, it is not showing okay actually.
Excuse me, madam. What you
Yeah.
have to do, you just click on the share screen.
Yeah,
first.
I did too. It is showing a desktop. I clicked
Okay.
on the
Click on the
desktop and I
presentation.
clicked share, but then it says allow Zoom to share your screen.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I have clicked that okay also, but still looks like system. No, something I don't know.
Madam, can we do once more? Please stop all the share once. Stop sharing. And then again begin with the share.
Yeah.
Stop all the shares. Sometimes it may be because of the multiple share.
Yeah, that is what it is showing.
Click on the share screen. And then select the window or a tab, whatever you have opened.
No, because already there is something else. It is not showing actually. Can we just switch off the share or it is not showing? Because I have used Zoom, so it should not be a problem.
Okay.
I will escape.
The share screen option is visible to you, ma'am?
Yeah, it is visible. It is showing green, but then there is this
Click on
something.
that.
Yeah, I clicked on that, and then it's saying desktop when I'm showing share.
Yeah, no, again, don't view the command. Just select the presentation first
It
on
is not
double click.
showing, but it is not showing the presentation.
Okay, then you might have not opened it.
No,
You have opened it.
it is on full screen.
Okay. So just escape the screen.
Yeah, I have escape. Okay, has
Okay.
okay.
Now the presentation is there. It will be in a tab or window. Now click on that tab or window.
No, it's not. Okay, what I'll do quickly now is maybe see because I can see this screen. It's full screen.
Sir, you just remove the host from the madam and do it once again. Let us see what.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Madam, we'll do it again. Okay.
Okay.
By the time, madam, you keep your presentation open now in your window.
Okay.
Ma'am, I'm going to make you host again.
Okay.
You are a host now.
It says allow Zoom to share.
Yes.
Looks like the Zoom is not permitted.
Yes.
Okay, what I'll do quickly, what I'll do is I'll email you the PPT,
Yeah.
maybe in the meantime.
Ma'am, can you share your
let's
PPT
see.
immediately so that
Yes.
Yeah.
Madam, you share your PPTs
Yeah.
from our
Ma'am.
side. We'll do.
Yeah, you could do that. I'm just trying to email it, including. Okay, in the meantime, let's not waste our time. Okay, so that's one which I said we have an interdisciplinary program, and I'm going to speak about authenticity in teaching. Of course, this whole topic that I chose because I'm speaking to a completely new audience today. I generally speak to a group of teacher educators or sometimes student teachers, so I'm not used to teach someone from an medical background or from the healthcare. This is my first experience. It's been quite, I mean, and no, not an easy task for me to decide, okay, because teaching, all of us are doing teaching, but does teaching vary according to disciplines? Does it vary across subjects? Does it vary across different kinds of, occupations? So that is one thing which I have thinking. And then I thought, okay, I didn't want to choose effective teaching as a topic, because when you choose effective teaching, you get into the whole gamut of measurements and hypothesis, and then we all look into outcomes and is it possible to put it in numbers. So this is where we get into it's again a it's a huge game actually when you try to speak of numbers and quantifying student performance. So I thought, let's go into authenticity of teaching. Basically, what with regard to authenticity, I'm just trying to see if I can put it, but looks like I still can't share. Okay, looks like it's also taking some time for my computer to upload this, but there is another PPT maybe in the meantime. Let me see if I can forward another old, because I generally keep upgrading my PPT. So every time I prepare a PPT, so there is always, anyway, you can take this PPT in the meantime. By the time I send the next PPT, which of course had a couple of slides more, and sometimes I change the sequence of my slides. Okay, coming up to authenticity, if you take the next slide is basically we see that teaching is a very dynamic profession, and any profession that is dynamic. I mean, dynamic in the sense it keeps changing. Today, if there is a focus on some aspect, tomorrow it's something else. Similarly, even something like pharmacy also as a profession is changing, especially now. Looking at the COVID times, how things have changed completely drastically level. And in fact, I'm sure as educators, most of you also must have realized that it's quite possible that the content or syllabus in pharmacy also needs to be changed, and which of course happens in the other disciplines. So you can see even the content and syllabus, because any profession is not dynamic, even the content also is not dynamic for any kind of a course syllabi. But ultimately the whole question is, how often do we revise any syllabus? Is how does it take 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years to revise the syllabus? I think that is a very important point. I think as educators, we need to really think, how often do we need to revise the syllabus? Coming up to teaching now, everyone has our own style of teaching. And if you look actually into teaching, it depends. It depends also on the kind of content you're teaching, because when I was looking into the pharmacy syllabus, I realized that there's a lot of theory and then there's a lot of lab work. So it could be either within the four walls of a lab. So that is a different kind of teaching. Apart from that is understanding of learners. Your teaching style also depends how much do you understand your learners. Are your learners homogeneous? Are they diverse? Where are they from? Are they rural background? Are they from urban background? This is another one. And also it also depends on largely teaching also depends on our teachers, that is the teachers who have taught us. So that's something very important we need to know. And of course, since something like in a field of education, there is always a teacher training program, so it also depends on the kind of a teacher training program you have, or like even professionals like you, since you have short-term training programs, it also depends on the kind of inputs that you have been given during a course of your while teaching in your profession. But by and large, if you see that, even teaching depends on the resources available by a particular institution. So that could be also depends on the time given by available for you. Have you got my PPT? Because I emailed it long time back. Maybe I would like you to share the PPT if you have received my PPT. Dr. Pathak, sir. I would prefer the PPT is being showed. I had emailed to him. So I'm just waiting if he can share my PPT. Okay. Okay,
Yes, ma'am. Just a few minutes.
yeah. Okay.
You can proceed, ma'am.
Okay. Now coming up to authentic teaching, if you see, basically, if you, as a term says, it describes as being real, something which is more real or which is more genuine, and it's generally given to faculty who want to develop just to do something what comes naturally, or for a teacher. Many times, initially teaching when we do is quite, raw and not very much like refined. But as you keep teaching and with the years of experience, your teaching comes naturally. That is what we need to see. And it also depends to what extent you try to give efforts to yourself to teach naturally. It's, in other words, is to how do you facilitate the application of learning. But by and large, when we say that teaching is to be genuine or real, it also means, when does something becomes real? It becomes real only when you can apply it to your daily life. That is something you can facilitate the application of learning. That is, it can be applied to your real life. Okay, something in pharmacy. If you look at, I have been doing some of the reading on the pharmacy research that's been undertaken. Research. If you see active pharmacy education, there's a lot of concerns about pharmacy education. That is the courses that has been given pharmacy, and that is primarily seen that pharmacy education is primarily seen as an industry and product oriented. That is one. And second thing also, you find that that it prevents students from learning necessary practical skills expected by the community or the hospital or the industry. That's another thing. And also, there is somewhere it's devoid of strengthening the components of community pharmacy. But actually, if you see pharmacy, a field, a subject as a pharmacy subject or as a discipline, is an integral part of a healthcare system, which of course I don't want to speak because all of you are experts and authorized in this particular knowledge of this body of knowledge. I am only speaking as a third person, a person who's not from the field, but from a bird's eye view. But I think there has also been a concern that this particular education needs to be extended towards people or patients' care skills, and of course, which has become more prominent during this particular pandemic time. I'm sure most of you must have realized that. Yeah.
We have share your PPT.
Yeah. Can you go to the number 5 slide, please?
Madam, every time you have to say next slide, so that they can.
Yeah. This is what I was speaking about, application, the discipline pharmacy. Yeah, you can go to the next slide, please. Okay. Yeah, 6 paths to authentic teaching. See, is being sincere. Now here, I'm not speaking sincere in terms of value because we're not here to speak of values, but here I'm speaking in terms of being sincere to whom. It could be even to your management, it could be even to your course developers, it could be sincere even to your learners. For instance, there have been occasions when I've been teaching my MPhil program, I found certain content which I thought it was outdated and it was not necessary, but it was available in the course. So I was compelled to teach that particular program. So that is when I get sincere with my learners or with my groups, that saying that, see, it is there in the course and it is mandatory, I have to take, but I still have an opinion about this particular course and I don't find it relevant for you people. But since it is a compulsion, we need to go ahead with it. So this is what about, and is also being true to oneself. I think we also need to realize that, see, just because a course comes to us doesn't mean that you have to. Somewhere we also need to be critical about that particular course, and because we need to think whether that particular course or the subject or topic we are teaching is going to be appealing for the students. That is something you need to be very careful about and need to care about the subject. Care about the subject is that if you really want an improvement in that particular subject, what else can I add to that particular subject so that it can make interesting students? And also, ultimately, it means a process of becoming. Becoming means you keep always improving on the subject that you're trying to teach. Next slide, please. Okay, and if you, yeah. Let me see what's my next slide. Okay. If you take teaching, okay, if you look teaching, that's again, I'm coming back to summarize, supposed to be genuine, brilliant. It has to challenge even a student, okay, to pursue their own authenticities. Sometimes your learners are, they also need to know what is authentic that I'm trying to learn in this particular program is basically, and it only happens when you convert your subject into real life world experiences or it is relating to the work environment. A situated approach. So for this, what do I mean by situated approach? Whenever you're teaching a particular approach, I think you need to look out for narratives, you need to look out for incidences where you're trying to place learners in that particular situation. If you were in that situation, how would you go about doing it? You know, it's something like resembling the real life application knowledge. Next slide. Okay, so that's about that. Okay, now this is a small study which was conducted wherein they tried to find out what are the opinion of students with regarding to an authentic teacher. And this is what they found, students' responses about, you know, you should also notice that there is always expectation from students. So students also feel that, okay, it has to be translate the subject matter to their knowledge level, because you know that Indian learners are diverse. So the kind of experience they come, the life worlds they have different. For a rural child, for an urban child, for a semi-urban child, they come with a different kind of an experience, with a different kind of, you know, entry level behavior, you know. And other thing, of course, I mean, I'm sure all of you are passionate. That is the reason you also enroll for this particular program. And also, I think it's very important that you should also give feeling to a child that each child is different. I think that is how you need to approach. You can't expect a class to be homogeneous where every child knows everything. It is not at all possible. And lastly, of course, I don't agree much to this particular statement that aren't friends with the student, because I always prefer that, I always see that there is a democratic relationship between a teacher and a student, where they are on par in terms of interaction, in terms of giving and taking knowledge. Now with the whole kind of a technological based kind of an environment we have, you know, that students sometimes know more about this. Okay, so coming up to next slide, please. Coming up to what I'm trying to speak based on, next slide, please. Yeah, based on my experience of teaching for so many years, I realized that there are three things which are very necessary for effective learning to take place in a classroom. One is experiences, second is engaging, and third is an encouraging environment. Experiences means is to share your experiences with your children, with your learners. Second is engaging, give them opportunities to interact, to ask questions, you know, to discuss, to argue, to disapprove. You know, this is something what you should encourage, because that is when learning takes place, when more of an analytical and critical time of chances are given. And third is encouraging, is encourage them to open up, give them a positive feedback, encourage them to do something different. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is what I'm trying to say. Experiences, I mean, case studies. I'm sure as educators, all of you must have even worked and come back to teaching. If you have a lot of experience, you know, especially that you gain in the field, in the social field out there, is very important for children, because many of the students taking your program, they don't know what actually the realities are when they go out into the industry or when they go to the hospitals. I think this is where you need to share children, I mean, with your learners. Case studies you can share, you know, small details that happens in the life, and dialogue, have a dialogue, questions, clear doubts, puzzles, encourage conflicts, group work, you know, that is something which you know, facilitate children to participate. And last, of course, is encouraging, where you motivate them, give them feedback, appreciate. I mean, these things are not necessary, I mean, I'm sure most of you must be doing, but I think the more you must realize that these needs to take place when you're conducting your classes. Next slide, please. Okay, I'll just quickly do a small exercise. I want you to go to menti.com if you can share. I've also shared the link on your chat box, and you can see that code 27976363, and that is a small exercise. If you actually, can you go to the next slide, please? I'm not sure whether I put that slide in this, because this was a PPT. Yeah, this is the PPT. If you go there, menti.com, this is the code you will get. And next slide, please. When you go to the next slide, yeah, you will get this Mentimeter. I want you to just try, you can actually slide this particular, go back. Yeah, you can slide this thing. To what extent have your teachers, I mean, all of you have had teachers, I have teachers integrated these components while teaching using the while teaching. I want you to share your experience, maybe put your rating on this particular scale. I will quickly, it's 2:27, I'll quickly give you 2 minutes to do it, and you can submit your response. I actually wanted to share the response, but now since the sharing is getting difficult on my computer, let's see if I can take a PPT, take a snapshot and then send it to Mr. Pathak, and then maybe he can share that sometime to you. Okay. So this is, we'll give you quickly a minute. Yeah, 20. Okay. Now, since, yeah, we'll give another couple of seconds. It's basically, you want to just tell us the teachers who have taught you, how much have they used their experience while they're teaching you, how much you agree or disagree, how much were their lectures engaging to you, okay? Would you agree, to what extent do you agree or disagree? And how much did you find their teaching to be encouraging? I mean, were there opportunities where they have encouraged you during their teaching? Do you agree or disagree? Okay. Now we'll go on to the next slide. Okay. Can we go on to the next slide, please? Yeah. What are the approaches towards authentic teaching? When I'm speaking of something real, you know, something close to the life application to the learner's life worlds, to reality, the other approaches, actually by and large, if you see there are many approaches. I've just tried to come to two, and of course the third one, reflection, is something, a different aspect. But one is scenario based teaching, where actually when if you use this approach when you're teaching a particular subject, is you're trying to select case studies, and you start off your teaching by starting the case study or experience, and then you ask children if they are going to be placed in that particular situation, how do they react, or how do they resolve that particular problem. That is one. Other method is with collaborative learning, where you divide children in groups. Okay, you give them a conflicting situation and ask them how they are going to resolve that particular situation. I will come with examples later on. Maybe you can see as I go with the slide. And third, of course, is reflection. This reflection is actually a reflective exercise both teachers and learners can do while they're teaching. Is when you teach, you finish your teaching, you come back of teaching, you actually try also to think back what happened in your class. Basically, it's a kind of a self-feedback. It could also be even for students when they go to the field and they come back, is it possible for them to reflect what happened in the field and why did something like that happen in that particular field. Next slide, please. Okay, so coming up to scenario-based learning. Scenario-based learning, actually, if you see, they are based on real-life situations. This actually is an approach of teaching. If you just Google through, I've also shared a couple of articles on these things. It's basically you are giving a problem-solving environment to children, and then you're asking them, you are facilitating some kind of a decision-making skills in the children. Like you ask them, if you're in that situation, how would you solve it? What kind of decisions you would take? It's basically, they also critically look at that particular situation, and opportunities for guided exploration, of course, are given by the teacher. And then this kind of experience more engaging and immersive. Next slide, please. Okay. For example, if you look at how the world biggest slum stopped the virus, you know that since COVID is is the talk now everywhere. Yeah, someone asked me, where should I submit? You just have to submit the button once you click. There's a button below there when you on the menti.com site. Okay, how the world's biggest slum stopped. I mean, this is actually, I think it is a huge opportunity to discuss. I mean, something like Dharavi slum. You all know that last year, I mean, they really managed to contain the virus. And I think it's very important to study in a country like India. We could set an example to the other developing countries that, how we have managed to stop the spread of virus in a slum. Like, this could be raised as, this could be started as a scenario based. I mean, you give the scenario as what happened in the Dharavi, and how about how people, the healthcare professional, went into the slums and did the whole complete thing of contact searching, and how did they break the chain. These are the kinds, because now now the current slogan or 2021 is break the chain is the slogan, of course. And so, I mean, it has a lot of, in fact, the last year's experience could help us in this year also how to contain or reduce the spread of the virus. Next slide, please. If you also take some more examples, like, that the Kerala, the way the Kerala responded last year during the COVID-19, of course, is a good example for the other states. This happened sometime early in sometime in June 20 when Kerala model became very popular, and people were trying to understand, of course, what happened in Kerala. These are topics I think needs to be raised in the classroom, because these are associated somewhere, they could be associated with the subject directly or indirectly. Next slide. If you actually see subsequently later in September or October, I think again there came a question, what really went wrong with the Kerala model. This is something I think we need to really discuss. This is where we could have group work to be done to find out what happened in in Kerala. Is it possible to contact people from Kerala, healthcare professionals, and find out what went wrong with Kerala? So this is what I meant by something that is more authentic, that is more real, that where students can apply their knowledge. It gives opportunity even go back to your knowledge base. What do I read to to really justify what I'm trying to say about this particular issue. Next slide. Okay, this is what next is collaborative learning. That is the earlier what examples I gave was scenario based learning. You put these cases in front of children and then ask them to discuss. Now coming up to collaborative learning, where of course group learning, that I think all of us are born instinct is to learn socially, to be in social groups. So somewhere I think we fail to realize that to learn in groups is also our basic instinct. I think that is somewhere we fail to put most of our in educational platforms. But I think it is very important now, since most of us are gone into online teaching. So you can use groups to enhance learning, work together. Basically, a set of one helps in bringing up the liabilities of others. So this is where they pick up. It's more of a democratic kind of environment where children put in groups, and it's basically a shared ownership. Students also know that, okay, I also own some kind of a knowledge that I have produced during this particular exercise. Next slide, please. For what it could be for collaborating. Take for example, I'm just thinking, what could we think of collaborating? You think about 220 ka jo COVID hua tha last year. How different is it from 2021, the second wave? How do you think that the role of the responsibilities of the pharmacists, that is the frontline hospital pharmacists and the frontline community pharmacists, have they changed last year? Has it changed from there? Because now, with the vaccination coming up, so it has an additional role for the pharmacists. So this is where, how has the role changed from 2020 to 2021? We can form two groups, and then make them to show. And basically, you need to realize that the role of a pharmacist has unfolded. By and large, pharmacists have always been on the backstage, but this COVID experience of the last 2 years has really brought them to the forefront, and people know how important they are. Next slide. Okay, that is where, and of course, this is also similarly, you can also think of some kind of a project-based learning. Now is the time you also know that we've now starting looking for solutions, how to break the chain, solutions to how to stop the spread of the virus, how to do the contact tracing, and now with the vaccinations, I know. Next slide, please. What is a kind of a project that if you know that when last year in 2020, when we were more concerned about the number of corona patients in the pool, this is a small. This is only the corporation of Pune Corporation gives us these kind of maps in every wards. What is the number of patients? And now you can think, now with the vaccination come, is it possible for us to develop a map on the number of patients being vaccinated area wise, depending on the number of the cases in the same kind of wards? I think this is something which should also help us, because I remember this first map was very important to us, and now I think vaccination map was also important now to see that, okay, does it correlate with the number of cases in that particular ward, and who are the ones who are getting it? Is it the upper middle class, low middle class? Are they workers? Are they slums? So this is where I think a mapping exercise could be taken up as a project by the pharmacists. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah. The third is reflective teaching. Okay, it's more of an introspective exercise where what you do, why do you do it, why do you teach this way, why using this kind of approach, why do you lecture, why is it not possible for me to for me to speak, what works, what does not work, does only lecture work, or does interaction also work? It's basically a cyclist process. You teach, you come back, you retrospect, you see what happened, where did I go wrong, can I change? no, okay, if there is a particular group of students of not trying to participate, what do I do to encourage them to participate? So this is what you need to do as a reflective architecture, but this only should not take place within a teacher, but even students need to do when they go to the field or when they go to an industry or the hospital or when they see something, or they can come back and why did something, a situation like that take place? Who went wrong or who was right? This is something. And so basically you're trying to be accountable to yourself and also to your students. Next slide. Yeah, so basically this is the whole summary of this part of my lecture today. Actually, we almost have the 15 minutes. I want to finish it. It's basically if you use this kind of an approach, I think this is the kind of then the output you're likely to get to basically develop your students to be as effective members of the healthcare team, interpersonal health scheme, then climate. It's basically also shared value. When you work in groups, you learn a lot from one another, especially in terms of sharing, in terms of supporting one another. You also start defining your roles and responsibilities, communicating effectively with other professions, because that your field is not an independent field. You have to work with lot other disciplines. It could be the radiology, or it could be even the doctors, it could be many other things, even it could be the marketing and it's a market, it could be I think even politics also is involved in medicine. So there's lot things happening, just like in education also, it does not operate independently. There's an economics of it, there's a politics of it, there's an anthropology of it. Similarly, it's also with your discipline. So I also want to say that this pandemic actually has unfolded the different roles of our pharmacists. Apart from delivering medicines, you've also been as educators, you've been as consultants, you've been a therapist. I mean, you've been a huge support to the complete community. And most of it, I am sure all of us would agree. I know even a layman will agree that one of the most, the pharmacists have been one of the most accessible healthcare provider during these 2 years of pandemic crisis, because when we have a complete lockdown, the pharmacy stores are only permitted to be open. Next slide. Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay. Let me see okay. So this is how you can think of, is it possible to think of course that you're currently giving? Can you think in terms of the roles that you're likely to play ultimately? Is it possible to link it with scenarios? Something which I said earlier, think it to the slum case studies where effective or ineffective, then something like a learning activity, have a small activity, and then see what kind of outcome you can come out with your course. Next slide, please. Okay, see, I was just looking at what do you think are the kinds of, I've also, when I was looking into your course, I found that there is a theory part and there is a lab part, but that's a technical lab. But I was thinking that for a discipline like pharmacy, there's a huge social lab outside your classroom, that is the community. I think that is where you need to take advantage of using that social lab for seeing the relevance of your knowledge, the applicability of your knowledge, how important also it is for the benefit of the community. So these are a couple of courses which I thought you could largely use for something like a scenario based teaching, or something like a collaborative based teaching. Of course, the other subjects also you could be used. Next slide. Okay, now coming up to the second part of my, this is actually my second part of my presentation. We know that the COVID pandemic transition, all the higher education institutions in the country have been asked to shift to online teaching, that's the remote teaching. I know teachers have been grappling to, really get into this new environment, adjust. Even students having a lot of problems to adjust. And this was the only alternative left now. But the whole question is, are we prepared? Because it was abrupt, it was sudden. And the whole question of and I don't think most of us have online resources. I don't think institutions do not have repositories, but is it possible to teach with the minimum available resources? Next slide. I'm just trying. I did teach something like when I was, of course, I taught this class before the pandemic. We were doing an online, it's a PG diploma course on, it's on online education. I use the Google Classroom. I think you need to explore Google Classrooms, and most of you have Gmails. Go to the apps thing, icon, and choose Google Classroom and start experimenting and see. This is a course which I taught, and I found it not very effective, of course, like a face-to-face, but is relatively better when you start teaching. Next slide, please. if you look at the basically this is how you can, if you see in the slide, I have done a lot of e-groups have been formed. We form a lot of group activities because children tend to drift away in online environment. So it's better to have them in groups, that's when they stay in touch. And students are very good in WhatsApp. And so activities, if you give them, they can really communicate through WhatsApp. Next slide. This is how it looks on the Google Classroom. This is how I put a post, and then you can see there are 13 comments, students comment. It's something like Facebook also. You can also, this is the Google Classroom site where you can see I gave them assignments for 24 were graded. So this is the kind of thing it also gives you. Next slide. These are the classwork. You can see I had even a separate slot for all the online materials so that they can access e-learning resources. And these are like sessions. I have divided, you can see I've divided my course completely into 5 sessions, and you can see these are the way I have done. Okay, next slide. Yeah, before I go into now, I want to speak something of mind maps, because ultimately, you know that the kind of course we teach, it's a concept to teach. Sometimes we have a lot of ideas in mind, and we fail sometimes even to translate that into, so that the students can understand. So always, I think it's a very good idea to actually choose a tool called mind maps. There are a lot of free mind map tools in the website. This is a one which I found was canva.com. It's more colorful, basically to represent your ideas, your concepts, your constructs, or your issues in maps in a pictorial form. And I think you should use this more when you're starting using your online mode of teaching. Next slide, please. So this is a thing I just prepared just a couple of days back using the canva.com. Same on authentic teaching. See, something like this also registers fast in a student's mind. So children can immediately remember also when you teach concepts like this through graphicals. It leads to effective learning. Next slide. I generally also teach research methodology. I also developed an online course on research methodology for the education students. So I generally use, this is also mind map. I don't remember what is the website I use, but when you explain, you'll surely find. This is about a tool. So I also try to graphically represent an observation tool. What are the forms of tools you can use? So this is the, immediately if you see this, then you'll come to know, okay, these are the aspects that come under a observation schedule. Next slide. If you take up now, ultimately, but whenever you teaching online seems to be, more romantic, because generally if you ask children, teachers, what skill do you want, they say online teach. It's a fad. It's actually, if you really, when you get into online teaching, it is not as easy as it seems to be, as people advertise, as people say. You can't take online teaching for granted, because the moment you start teaching online, and when you start looking for resources, you know that the resources are not free. They have intellectual property rights. They come at a cost. You need to seek permission. There are licenses. So there's a lot of barriers in online teaching, or because then you have to start preparing notes and posting. So this is the one. Next slide, please. So how do you overcome this kind of barrier? Yeah. So this is what, any content you go to online, they seem that accessible, but actually you cannot use them for your courses, because the courses that you run are commercial. You charge fees from students, so you can't use all the resources available that is available on the web. Next slide. If you generally take any website you go, you scroll down somewhere where below you have contact us. There is something called terms of use. You need to check what is the terms of use. Are you permitted to use that particular online course? Next slide, please. If you see that I just picked up on one, there is always some conditions laid. And what could be the condition? Like, see, this says in this particular website, I found it protected by copyright, trademark, patent. So you can't use the pictures, you can't use the content, you cannot use those things while you're teaching a particular course. It does not grant any express or implied permission to use the site. Okay, this is basically I'm using Shutterstock. The Shutterstock I was using for images. They say free images, but actually when you go to the terms and use, you cannot use the images from that particular website. So this is something you, as an educator, you need to really understand and be aware that even if it says free on the, when you Google and write free, they are actually not for free. Next slide, please. basically if you see that it is a copyright. So if you see this C thing on a website, it means that it is copyright and someone owns that. So you cannot own that particular resource on the website. If you go next slide, please. I would like to come back to slide later on. Yeah. To avoid that barrier, there is something called a movement in the 20th century. They started a movement called open education, where they felt that education is a fundamental right. Even resources, knowledge is a right, and it cannot be a privilege. So I mean, you need not, just because it's only cannot be for those who can bear the expenses or pay for it, or who even it also, language also is the biggest barrier. Why can't I translate into Marathi or in my own language? So they started an movement, and this movement of open educational resources. Can you go back to the back slide, please? If you see that when I said the left one, which to your left is a copyright, which means it's completely protected by the owner or the developer of that particular site, or created the image or content. But if you see the right side, which are in the black, you can see there are 4 icons. These are the licenses developed by Creative Commons. It's called CC. Jenny, if you see, they came out with licenses where there are some rights given to the user to use those specific resources. So the first one, the person, it says when you use resources, you just have to acknowledge that particular website. The second one, it says Euromark, it's cross, which means you cannot use this site for commercial purpose. The third one, it says ND, no derivatives. You have to use the resource just like that. You cannot change anything in that. And the third one is share alike. Like if you use any of these options, you have to use the same license when you also use it, and you have to say that this is your license. Next slide. You can skip the next slide also. Skip this. Yeah. So this is what is the licensing condition. No, go back, please. Yeah. This is the licensing condition which I said. You see from open, it can go from open. Open means it is in the public domain. You can do anything about that particular resource. But if you come down, it is copyright. You cannot do, you cannot use, nothing. All rights are reserved by the owner. But whereas open, no one owns it, so anyone can use it. But in the middle, you see that is a Creative Commons license, where it could be partially permitted, not permitted, commercial, utilized, not utilized, or you could distribute like in your courses to your students. So this is just it's just a bird's view of the license conditions that generally apply to all the online resources that are available on the website. Next slide, please. Yeah. So this is how, see this, if you remember those 4 black icons which I showed, see these are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 kinds of licenses that are generally being distributed on the website. So whenever you see, you can see any one of these licenses are generally mentioned. And if you see in the right side, it also mentions whether you can use it for commercial purposes, whether you can modify, adapt, or you can change the license. Attribution requirements, you need to acknowledge the owner of the website, and whether you can copy and publish. Just next slide. Yeah, these are a couple of, I was just looking out for some of the online resources in pharmacy, and so these are the resources I found very interesting. This Amaldo Husa Asu Dungan, basically he has YouTubes if you look in, and there's also this Osmos YouTube, also a lot of YouTubes completely on health. It's also on biology, and then you also have this Apple podcast. Podcast means basically audio lectures. This is by the Rosalind Franklin. So I was very keen to see what is the kind of license these particular, because when you look at the website, you'll be very interested. I mean, you'll be really keen that, oh, my students should look into these websites. But the question is, can you use them or not? Next slide. This is also another, Merlot also has materials, which is also, it says to be it says to be open OER, because when I Googled and found it, it says, if you look at it, it has a lot of materials on this site, from flashcards and different kind of thing. Next slide. These are universities in the US. And the other one, BS Compass OpenNet. This is, if it clearly says it's an OER, it's an open education resource. That means faculties anywhere across the world can use. But sometimes what happens in US universities, they say it is an OER, but then they restrict it only to the students of their own university. So that is also something which you need to see that. Go to the next slide, please. Yeah. So when I went to see what is the kind of license, the first one you see Merlot. Merlot, you can see very clearly, there is a C there. It means it's a copyright of that particular university or that organization. So you cannot use that, but it says contact Merlot. So if you really want to use the resources of that particular website, you need to contact from them and take permission from them to use their resources. The second one you see, it says CC and BY. That is CC is creative. It has a Creative Commons license, but it says BY. It says BY, it means that you can use that particular resources, and that is for the OB campus. Can you go back? Maybe quickly I'll show. Go back slide. Yeah, this is the one, BC campus. This has that particular. Come friend, for next. Go forward, please. Yeah, stop here. So this is what the OB campus, the OER, which says this. That means you can use this particular website, but you need to acknowledge that particular website. But Armaldo Asudan, when I looked on, you saw it has a copyright. It has a C. That means the owner has the whole. He has a license, so he owns the complete videos. And since it's YouTube, as you know that YouTube videos are not free; they are all copyrighted. So you really cannot use them without taking permission of the owner of that particular tube who has posted that particular video. So this is how it is. And the last one, I think it is, yeah, last one, if you see, is that particular which I spoke about, the audio podcast by that Roseland University. It says it also has a Creative Commons license, but you see it says that non-commercial and share alike. That means you can use it only for non-commercial purposes. So if you're using that, and of course you have to acknowledge the particular website. So this is something you really need to be aware, because since now most of you are into online education, something to be authentic, you also need to be careful while using online resources. Next slide, please. Okay, so okay, now this is actually this is generally, now it's about the whole thing of authentic, being authentic, and also being honest. True, that is what I meant. If you're using resources, you have to acknowledge where you're using the resources by giving the website, acknowledge the author. These are the kind that needs to, and this, when you develop this, I think the learners, even the students, also know that you have to acknowledge resources when you take, is it genuine websites or not. It also maybe avoids, to some extent, avoids plagiarism also. It also helps them yeah, that's because now you know that since plagiarism is now been adopted by most of the universities, you have tools to check plagiarism. I think this, so you need to know about these licenses. And the last slide of mine today is there is something called virtual labs, which the IIT Delhi has started, which of course was under the scheme of the Minister of Education. If you actually look into, go to the website of virtual labs, they have a lot of this simulated experience which are available for students. You can just go into and see that these are the departments which have developed, and a lot of universities have joined with the virtual labs of Delhi and started their own labs. I think I have not seen anything yet in pharmacy or pharmaceuticals. I think it should be a good opportunity for your colleges to approach virtual labs and see something which you can do, and develop labs, simulation labs, and develop, and maybe you can actually what do you say, collaborate with the IIT Delhi, this particular virtual labs group of people. It's important, and I think this should be a nice opportunity for your students also to know about this particular. There are a lot of resources, maybe something like biotechnology and biomedical engineering could help some of your students. Next slide, please. So to wrap up this whole presentation, I think there is a need now in the country as a whole to undergo educational transformation. Basically, is move from content loader to process. Process in the sense is learning of skill rather than just memorizing knowledge. We should shift away from memorization and shift away from competitions rather than go to performance. Is it possible to ask, rather than having this kind of paper pencil test, is it possible to ask children to go to the field, come back and write a report, reflect on their experiences? I know this is where a lot of growth take place among the students. I think this is where we need to give opportunities. Analytical thinking, is it possible? They also have an opinion. I mean, you have to give them a platform to give their opinion about the field. And more than individual performance, is it possible to have group performances? Apart from being instead of being competitive, is it possible to look out for collaborative initiatives? And rather than being unidisciplinary, is it possible to go into an interdiscipline? Something like when I said, if you want to do a mapping of the vaccination taking place in a particular city, you can't do it independently. You know, you have to get in touch with a engineering or an app person who is more technical. So is it possible to collaborate? This is where I meant, is it possible to have an interdisciplinary or a multidisciplinary approach? And this is what, yeah. So I think next slide, there's another last, next slide, and I think there's another activity. Yeah, this is another small activity again on Mentimeter. I would like you to just go and is another small activity. Is basically trying to ask you if you can define Mentimeter. Let me see if I could. Can you just define authentic? I'll also share, in the meantime, share the presentation of last times. Maybe I would request Professor Pathak to share your responses. Maybe you can see. We would quickly. I've shared the first thing. I would request them to share that. Okay. Can you see the? Yeah. Yeah. Is the activity different on the menti.com? I've just put another activity. Is basically the activity is basically how just define in a word the term authentic. So maybe that also maybe I would share with in the once I get responses. Let me see if I'm getting responses. Yeah, I've still not got a response, but it's okay. Just go back to menti.com and it says define in a word authentic teaching. What do you feel about authentic teaching? Can you define? Is it not can't you see is the screen not possible? Maybe I'll ask Dr. Pathak. I have emailed you a presentation of the last response. You can just share
Yes,
it
madam.
with
Yes,
the group.
yes, yes. We'll share it once we complete this.
Okay, fine. Yeah, I'll give a couple of minutes now. I can see the response coming. Just got the first response. Yes, I can see terms like genuine, satisfaction of students, sincere teaching. Yeah. Come on, just respond. It's just one word you have to write. Whatever striked you during this presentation, which you think is very important as a teacher, as an educator, or even maybe as a researcher. Yeah, my responsibility. Someone's written just now. Yeah, yeah. Quickly, I just got 5 responses. You can just someone wrote 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Someone wrote sincere teaching, fruitful outcomes. Yes. Quickly, yes. Someone, yes. Students learn and apply. Yes. I can see, yes. 12 response, just yes. You can see the kind, I mean, how as educators, how, yes, encouraging, how different we are, diverse even in our thinking styles, in terms of our goals, in terms of what is important for us, you know. So there are around 13 responses. Yes. Yeah, I'll give another couple of seconds and then I will just share this slide also so that Dr. Pathak can show you. Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't, yes. This is something you can also use with your students. This slide, the website name is menti.com. It is actually, it's a polling meter kind, which you can ask students maybe even after you complete your lessons. It's, yeah. So I've shared the second. I can some more responses coming up, but now I've already clicked the slide. So maybe you could see. Yeah, I was send a snapshot of the second presentation. You can see the first session and the second session. This is, it's very appealing when you see students interact and you know, respond to your teaching. I think it's also encouraging for the students also when they see that their responses are displayed on the display to the whole class, because there's some kind of a recognition. Every child would like to be recognized. Yeah. Any questions quickly? I'm almost 1 o'clock. If there's any quickly questions, I will answer 1, 2, 3 questions. Maybe in the meantime, they display the 2 slides. Yeah. If there's anything, yeah, you could ask. Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah.
Anyone having any query?
Never mind. I would not insist on queries, because many times when you listen to someone, you also get into a thought process, because you're still trying to keep into the knowledge space. Yes, if someone wants to ask something, it's fine. Yeah. I would like
I can
them
see
to
from the
share
chat box, ma'am, people are asking.
Yeah, I can't see. I don't see anything.
No, ma'am. I am saying that people are appreciating your session. It was very nice. Nice information. And some participants are even asking for your PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, please. I have already emailed to Dr. Pathak. You can take it from him. I think
Yes.
I can PPT from him. So that's the same thing. Yeah. Can you just show the slide presentation? Maybe they can see.
What, ma'am?
No, I didn't speak. Can you just share the slide? Those 2 snapshots which I sent.
Yes. Pathak, sir.
Yes, madam, we need 1 minute just to take it to the technical session. Madam, this was your first slide, slide 1.
You can see that this is how it looks like. Many of you agree or disagree regarding your teachers, kind of teaching that it was more engaged and experienced. Was it more engaging, or was it more? This is generally a scale. So we need not do only to get an opinion of a teacher, but then you can speak for an opinion of an issue or the next slide. Quite a number of students, I mean, a lot of you have responded for the first kind of question. Go to the next. Yeah, if you see this is the kind of response that you got for the second. This is how it looks. When I asked you in one word how would you define
Is it visible, ma'am?
Yeah, it's visible. It is visible. This is one. That's it. Thank you so much, and stay safe. That's what I want to say now. And I would like to thank Dr. Professor Pathak for inviting me to take this session. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. You have explored various options that provides authentic online data and authentic teaching. Thank you so much. I request you, ma'am, to please accept virtual bouquet.
Thank you so much.
From Modern College of Pharmacy.
Yeah.
And a certificate as a token of appreciation on behalf of convener of STTP, Dr. P.D. Chaudhary, Principal, and Coordinator, Dr. Atul Pathak, Professor, Modern College of Pharmacy, Negri. We would definitely love to hear you again, ma'am, in our upcoming events.